everyone! Today, we're going to talk about one of the most common and useful strategies in academic writing, comparison and contrast. This means looking at how things are similar and how they are different. You might already use this in everyday life, when you choose between two cameras, compare universities, or even talk about the differences between your country and the US. But in academic writing, we need to do it in a more organized and structured way. Let's start with some basic definitions. To compare is to look at what things have in common. For example, the two album covers are almost alike. Both show the face of the artist. The font or typography used in both album covers is the same. The quality of the music is equally good. Notice that in these sentences, we highlighted the words almost alike, both, same, and equally. These words signal similarities between the things being compared. The two album covers are almost alike. Both show the face of the artist. The font or typography used in both album covers is the same. The quality of the music is equally good. Other common words or grammatical structures we use to show similarity include like and as. For example, a Canon T6i camera looks like an SL2. A Canon T6i camera costs as much as an SL2. We can also use the same as. For example, the value of a Canon T6i camera is the same as that of an SL2. Now, to contrast is to focus on what makes things different. Let's again use an example of two album covers. They share many similar elements. For example, both artists are near a lake, and both are wearing a wool poncho. You can also see unicorns on both covers. However, there are some differences. The artists do not work for the same record company. The albums use different colors. The album cover on the left shows a woman and a rainbow, while the one on the right shows a little kid and a moon. Before we talk about how to organize your comparison, there's one important step we cannot skip. In academic writing, we shouldn't just compare random things we notice. We need to choose clear criteria. That means specific points or aspects we will use to compare both items. A good illustration of this is the article 6 Ways College Differs from High School. Here, the author decided to compare these two forms of education by looking at 6 aspects or criteria: responsibility, class structure and instruction, pace of instruction, kinds of studying, exams, and grades. These criteria help keep the comparison fair and organized because you're looking at the same aspects in both subjects. Without clear criteria, your writing might feel confusing or random. Likewise, in the chapter from the White House Interpreter, the author uses several criteria to compare the work of translators and interpreters. These aspects of criteria are the type of words they deal with, the places where they commonly do their work, the time they spend finding the meaning of words, how fast their product should be ready, how accurate the product of their work is, and how long their product is meant to last. So always start by asking yourself, what exactly am I comparing and what points am I focusing on? Now, when you write an essay that compares and contrasts things like two cameras, two album covers, or two systems of education, there are two main ways to organize your ideas. One is known as the part-by-part technique, and the other as the block-by-block technique. Let us look at each one. The article 6 Ways College Differs from High School is a good example of the part-by-part technique. The authors enumerate and discuss each aspect one by one. They discuss responsibility in high school and college, class structure and instruction in high school and college, pace of instruction in high school and college, kinds of studying in high school and college, exams in high school and college, and grades in high school and college. The chapter from the White House Interpreter also follows a part-by-part approach, as the author discusses each criterion in the lives of translators and interpreters. Now let's pay attention to the highlighted words in each sentence. These are useful connectors to indicate comparison and contrast. Interpreters deal with spoken words, whereas translators deal with written words. Unlike the product of interpreters, which is for the moment, the product of translators is for the ages. Spoken translations done by interpreters should be accurate, but those done by translators are even more accurate. These signal words help the reader follow the logic of comparisons and contrasts. Once you finish watching this video, you can take a more close look at this chart in which we have summarized for you different words that are used to compare and contrast, and mostly with the part-by-part technique. Now, when comparisons are not very deep or complex, you can use the block-by-block technique. This time, you write everything about one subject first, and then everything about the second. Let's say you're comparing high school and college. In one paragraph, you'll describe several aspects of high school: responsibility, class structure and instruction, pace of instruction, kinds of studying, exams, and grades. Then, in a new paragraph, you will describe the same aspects of college life, in the same order: responsibility, class structure and instruction, pace of instruction, kinds of studying, exams, and grades. This technique works well for short assignments, or when the things we compare or contrast are very different. Generally, you will indicate that you are contrasting these two things by starting your second paragraph with connectors such as, on the other hand. However, in contrast, conversely, and nevertheless. Now let's illustrate how you can compare or contrast the same two things using these two techniques. So let's contrast two seasons in Vermont, summer and winter. Remember, whenever we are comparing or contrasting, we should start by determining which aspects or criteria we will focus on. Here, let's look at the duration of the season, average temperatures, how people dress during the season, and the typical indoor and outdoor activities they do during the season. If we choose to use the part-by-part technique, we would then look at the duration of winter and summer in Vermont, the average temperatures in winter and summer, how people dress during winter and how they dress during summer, and the typical indoor and outdoor activities in the winter and the typical indoor and outdoor activities in the summer. This part-by-part comparison and contrast can be done in just one paragraph. However, if we choose the block-by-block technique, we would then need to write two paragraphs. In one paragraph, we will discuss winter, and then in the other, we will discuss summer. And in order to help our readers process the information more easily, we will need to present aspects or criteria in the same order in both paragraphs. So to summarize, comparison and contrast help us think critically and write clearly. Before you start comparing or contrasting anything, ask yourself, why am I comparing these things? What criteria will I use? Which method is better, part by part or block by block? The more clearly you plan, the easier it is to write a strong and organized essay. Use the part-by-part technique for longer or more detailed writing. Remember that there are a number of words or connectors that indicate that you are comparing and contrasting. Don't forget to review them after this video. And use the block-by-block technique for simpler or shorter assignments. Thanks for watching, and remember, the goal is not just to see what's similar or different, but to understand why those comparisons matter. Goodbye.